It's so wonderful to have you with us this morning. I am the Reverend William Levwood, affectionately known as Rev Lev. My pronouns are he and him, and I'm the minister here at Accotink Unitarian Universalist Church. Let's begin, as we always do, by centering ourselves for worship, taking together a deep breath. We open and welcome to the ancestral people of this land, acknowledging that our church, like all of Burke, rests on the unceded territory of the Manahoac tribe of the Great Sioux Nation. We seek healing and the realization of justice with the people of this land who live on and their descendants, the present-day members of the Monacan Indian Nation, the Patawomic Indian Tribe of Virginia, and the Piscataway Indian Nation. We honor the ancestors as we move toward healing so that all, together, shall one day know full justice.
And welcome to Accotink Unitarian Universalist Church. I'm Connie Diamant, and I'm happy to be your worship associate today. If you aren't new to Accotink, look around. Do you see people you haven't met or haven't seen in a while? These people like you and want to meet you. Help us live up to our mission of being welcoming and inclusive spiritual home for all, reaching out and making a connection. By visiting this congregation, newcomers are in a transition moment, and people in transition are open to new friendships. Whether you're a longtime member or newcomer or something in between, we encourage you to stay for our social hour, online and in person, immediately after the service. We're so delighted that you could join us today, and welcome.
So we're entering a new month, which means we have a new Soul Matters theme. Our theme for the month of June is freedom. And as we do every month, we're going to go on a journey exploring freedom. Today, per that maybe somewhat challenging reflection question you were given about when you felt unadulterated joy or freedom, today we're going to explore the kind of freedom that, for me, I've really experienced most as a child. Those moments of just freedom from restraint and restrictions and that kind of timelessness. I'll say more about that later. Next Sunday, we're going to talk about the kind of the opposite, the structures that are needed, particularly social structures, in order to give us the ability to be free. The idea that actually there's a lot that we need, a lot of groundwork that we need in our society, some of which is being actively torn down right now, in order to actually have freedom. So we'll explore that next Sunday. And then our third Sunday, actually for the last time for a little while, will be a multi-generational service, as we do every third Sunday, except for in the summer, so not in July or August. But this third Sunday in June, we'll have a multi-generational service. We're going to honor Juneteenth, but it's not really a service that is about Juneteenth, so much as an opportunity for us to look at the wisdom of the past that ancestors have for getting through challenging times, times when our freedoms are under siege. And we're particularly going to draw from the African American experience with that and see what wisdom the past and our ancestors have to give us for that. And then the next Sunday, our service is at 11. So the fourth Sunday, we'll say this again as we get closer, the service is at 11, not 10, because we're going to show on the screen, we're going to show our Unitarian Universalist General Assembly's closing worship. And we're going to enjoy each other's company. It's really a wonderful, it's one of the best, consistently one of the best worship services that I experience all year. So I really encourage you to come for that. And then True Accotink Colors will celebrate Pride on our last Sunday of the month. And the title is just so good, but I don't know if I can say it off the top of my head. It's Protest, Pride, Picket Signs, and popcorn. No, parades, that's it. So I encourage you to come for our True Accotink's color service at the end of June. But first, we're going to explore unadulterated joy. And before we do that, I want to invite you to rise in body or in spirit and join in reciting our chalice lighting words, which come from our mission statement. Let's say those together now. Together we, caring community, grow in spirit and act for justice.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Michelle Anderson, and I have the pleasure of being the Children and Youth Spiritual Development Director. Just like these were some deep cuts that we didn't know, I'm going to read a story today with words that you may not know. So, kids, I want you to pay special attention. And when there's a word you don't know, see if you can remember it and see if you can figure out what it means. And at the end, we'll try to figure out what they mean, okay? So the book is called Skater Cielo, and it's by Rachel Katstaller. Cielo loved to skateboard. She had a steezy push and a good pop. And sometimes it looked like she was flying. There's that first word, steezy. When she had a board under her feet, her ordinary town transformed into the most extraordinary skate park. Sidewalks became obstacles to ollie up. Rails turned into hippie jumps, and streets changed into a speedy downhill rides. Did you hear any of those words? Ollie up, hippie jumps. When she skated, nothing could stop her. One day, a park with deep pools opened. The biggest pool looked high from the top, super high. And from the bottom, it looked like the mouth of a whale. So that's what everyone called it. All the skaters were crazy about it, and Cielo was too. Now there's a word that you know what it means, you think. Pool. Is this like a pool that you know? It's a different kind of pool. Cielo waited for her turn at the whale. Then, as she had seen the others do, she dropped in. She fumbled and tumbled and slammed to a stop next to her board. She got up on shaky legs. She wasn't hurt, but she'd never fallen like that before. Cielo hurried out of the skate park. If she couldn't skate the whale, at least she could still do her ollies, land hippie jumps, and ride downhill. Cielo couldn't stand it. She lost her cool. Cielo walked back home and shoved her skateboard into the back of her closet. She didn't want to look at it ever again. Whenever Cielo passed the skate park, she'd see the whale from a distance and shiver. "Hey!" a girl shouted. "Didn't you used to skate?" "I'm the worst skateboarder in the world," Cielo mumbled. "No, you're not. I've seen what you can do. Come and skate with me and Cielo! Cielo's new friends, Mia and Miro, were great skaters. Together they zoomed in and out of the pool. Sometimes it looked like they were flying. Cielo watched them in awe. She wanted to fly again too, but all she could think about was falling. With her helmet secured, her knee pads and elbows on, Cielo looked over the edge into the mouth of the whale. It was a big drop. Hi. Bigger than she remembered. Go, Cielo! Mira cheered. You can do this, Mia shouted. I can do this, she told herself. She ignored her shaky knees and dropped in. She flew, then tumbled and slammed so hard that tears were forced out of her eyes. I can't do this, Cielo cried. Miro skated up. What do you mean? You just did. But I slammed, said Cielo. Yeah, and it was super sick, said Mia. Cielo blinked and sat up. Her stomach did a flip, but it wasn't the falling kind. She was suddenly feeling a little more fierce. Cielo climbed out of the whale and looked over the edge. Her brain felt foggy with fear, but her friends' cheers rang out loud and clear. One more time. You've almost got it. Just lean into it. It feels like flying. There was nothing that Cielo loved more than flying. So she dropped in again. And again. And again. And again. Her friends helped her up each time. Cielo lost count of how many times she fell, but she got back up just as many. Then, on one not so extraordinary drop, Cielo flew as high as she had ever flown. What'd you think? Did you find some words in there that you learned today? Anybody knew what steezy meant? Stylish. A steezy push, then, is a way to describe a skater's stylish way of moving forward with a skateboard. How about pop? Anybody know what pop means for skater terms? Not a whole lot of skaters here. You know? Yeah, what is it? It's something cool. Yeah, it's definitely. It's how high a skater can jump by striking the tail of the board against the ground. What about a hippie jump? Sounds like a dance move to me. It's when the board slides under a rail or obstacle while the skater jumps above it and lands on top of the board again after clearing the obstacle. And an ollie? What's an ollie?
When you jump and flip the skateboard.
Yeah, so we do have some skaters. The most important skateboarding trick, the ollie, involves jumping by popping the tail of the board on the ground and lifting it. All right, the last one, what about the pool? Was it a pool to swim in? No, it was a concrete ramp in the shape of a swimming pool that imitates waves, and they were skateboarding in it. Don't be afraid of something new. Summer is a great time to try new things.
So witnessing the transitions in our lives is an important role of our religious community. When children are small, we bless the spark of the divine within them in a special child dedication ceremony. At that time, we promise as a community to care for them, to help them grow in spirit, and teach them to act for justice. At that time, we give each child a long-stemmed rose with the thorns carefully removed to symbolize our commitment to nurture each child while keeping them safe.
Well, many years ago, Sam Eubanks, at the age of 3, with his dad Brian, was welcomed into our congregation. Sam has grown up here at Accotink while attending the Children and Youth Spiritual Development classes through countless changes at Accotink, in the surrounding world, and within each of us. Today, we will honor Sam in a special ceremony, one that bridging into adulthood. But before we begin that rite of passage, Sam has been invited to give a testimony about what it was like to grow up at Accotink.
I've been coming to this church to join our community since I was just 3. You all okay.
You stand straight, just stand closer.
Okay, so okay. You all have seen me through so many years, through the times I was quiet and when I was loud, of which there were many. You were here when I was just learning how to do basic math and when I was struggling through Algebra 2 and pre-calc. We talked on Zoom during COVID, and you all played in the kitchen while we ate breakfast. When we were all able to return in person, we came back together and we sang hymns in harmony, mostly, just as if we hadn't been apart at all. I remember that my favorite part of church has always been the music and community between all of us, young and old and different and similar alike. And I was shocked by how easily we've always come back from hardship as a spiritual community. I can still remember when I was shorter than the playground fence, running in the same place I run now. I always had a place here, whether I was healthy or not, when everywhere else I often struggled to keep up with everyone. This church has been here to offer me support in all of my troubles, as small as failed job applications to as big as my recent diagnoses. They've also been here to hear about all of my achievements too, especially the one that's brought me here today, my recent graduation. I've never had a shortage of friendly faces around here for even a moment, no matter how much I changed or grew. I'm glad to have been lucky enough to have a community like you all to watch me grow and help me thrive. I've always seen this church as my sanctuary from the busy, moving world outside, and that hasn't changed, even through all the changes in said world. Even when we gather outside of these walls, we bring that safety and kindness with us. Thank you so much for seeing me through this journey.
Just like in our Time for All Ages story, when Cielo was encouraged when she had sorrows and celebrated when she had joys, you have encouraged Sam and celebrated him as he grew into a young adult. You've given Sam tools to help make decisions in line with our values, practices to help grow in spirit, and opportunities to act for justice. Now, with this bridging ceremony, we witness Sam moving into adulthood. We know that young adults often move away from home, at least for a little while, and so we give you gifts to carry with you so that you remember that we are with you always. In addition to the rose that we'll give, we give you a book titled Becoming, full of hymns, poems, and prayers to support you on your journeys away from home. We give you a little chalice so you know we are always with you wherever you may go. And this time, we give you a rose with thorns, because being an adult is sometimes sharp and painful, but it is nevertheless full of beauty, joy, and opportunities for growth. This rose symbolizes our belief in you, We know that you will continue to blossom, growing more fully into yourself, and we can't wait to see that. Bridging is for the young adults who leave behind the classes of children and youth, yes, but it is also for the other members of the community. We are called not only to witness this transition, but to welcome Bridgers into the community as young adults. Members of the community, I invite you to join me in this rite of passage by saying the words found in your order of service. As you cross this bridge, we welcome you as you are, we share in your journey, and encourage your discovery.
As you stand now among us, Sam, know that we cherish you and the energy you bring to Unitarian Universalism. We pledge today, in the spirit of our multi-generational community, to continue our shared work of building beloved community at Accotink and in our world. Let's all say amen. Amen.
Our reading today is an excerpt from the essay, Out of Time, by Ross Gay. When I mentioned to my friend Bernardo that I was going to write about joy, he suggested I do an essay on the hang, by which he means hanging out with no discernible purpose or goal, with no end in sight. Or maybe it's more accurate to say that the conclusion of the hang will be bodily, having to eat or sleep, or relational, gotta go home to make dinner for my lady, or even earthly. Damn, it's getting dark and I'm on my bike, I better go, but before I do, Lord, these fireflies. Yo, have you ever heard Nina's version of George Harrison's My Sweet Lord? Come on, let's do that first and put it on the record player. It was Don's, you won't believe this. Let me tell you, I know a few people as good as the hang as Bernardo. When dude sits down on our porch, sometimes after we've worked out, sometimes after we've gone over some poems, he will cross his legs and topple into the first of several stories. It is a study in associational narrative logics, and the last thing he's thinking about. I have to tell you this, is that you, or he maybe has to be somewhere? The last thing he's looking at is his watch. Everyone's got everything to do, but when you drop into the hang, that's all there is to do.
These Sunday services are also an opportunity to drop into the hang. The sermon is inspired by a few of Ross Gay's essays from his book, Inciting Joy. Each of the essays is called an incitement to joy. So the excerpt you just heard from the essay Out of Time is subtitled Time, the Fourth Incitement. And I also almost called this sermon Out of Time after the essay, which is incidentally also the REM album that the song Near Wild Heaven comes from, the album titled Out of Time, which, by the way, is called Out of Time because they literally ran out of time. They didn't have a title, and the album was going to press, and they just said, well, let's call it Out of Time. It's a particularly unique album in REM's discography because the band members decided to make many of the songs playing instruments they didn't usually play. Peter Buck, REM's guitarist, most notably played mandolin on some of the tracks, despite not being a mandolin player. And I feel like they did this as an incitement, not only to joy, but to freedom. They needed help to step outside of time, outside of the normal flow of time, and also out of habit in order to find themselves somewhere new, to free themselves, to be able to journey to somewhere they'd never been before. And I will say, although it's especially true on this album, REM was uniquely skilled at this, like how Ross Gay's friend Bernardo is uniquely skilled at the hang. Every REM album sounds like a very different album, almost like an entirely different band, held together by nothing more than the distinctive tenor of Michael Stipe's voice. In interviews, REM's description of their creative process sounds like they were just hanging out with no discernible purpose or goal in mind, save that of making music, of making songs. Though I want to say, to accentuate the point, even the idea that they were making songs is debatable in a way, because they made unusual songs, sometimes without a chorus. The song Belong, for example, is less a song than a spoken word piece with background music, and a wordless chorus consisting of one melodic riff on the sound O, an extended O with a descant that has a keening quality that is somehow filled with longing, and somehow, in the way that only music or only art can do, is somehow filled with longing while at the same time giving the listener a feeling of satisfaction, of contentment, of being at home in the world. So I thought of calling this sermon Out of Time because that's the title of one of the essays that inspired it, and also the title of an REM album that feels like what it feels like to just hang out in that languid way without a discernible purpose or goal that becomes, at its best, a study in associational narrative logics, which is a kind of freedom, a gloriously joyful kind of freedom, one that follows the muse of the moment wherever the muse leads us. And in doing so, makes room for the bodily, the earthly, the relational, all things that are clock time driven, efficiency obsessed, capitalist, and right here I feel like I should say capitalist economy or capitalist society, but I really feel like it's a religion. That capitalism is the religion we, as Americans, are really devoted to, more than any other religion, more than Christianity or Judaism, or speaking for myself, I have to admit that in some ways I'm a part of a stream of movement that is more devoted to capitalism as its God than anything else. So that in some ways, in many ways actually, I'm more devoted to the God of capitalism than I am to Unitarian Universalism. But I find myself placing the clock and the dollar and efficiency at the center of my life, sometimes more than I place love at the center. And that even though I make my living, strange phrase, by the way, make my living, as a Unitarian Universalist minister, I often sacrifice the values of justice, of generosity, of interdependence, in favor of the values at the center of capitalism. And it seems to me that this is part of what it means to become an adult in our society. To spend less and less of our time out of time and more of our time in time, beholden to a clock and to the things that need to be done. Many of which, caring for children, paying taxes, showing up at our jobs, which as doctors and nurses and teachers and grocery store clerks and plumbers and construction workers and first responders and civil servants, aka federal workers, jobs that are about doing the work of caring for each other, which is essential. which is essential work. So I'm not saying that capitalism is a bad thing. I guess I'm just saying it's about balance. And in this sermon, I want to remind us of the value of the hang, of hanging out without a discernible purpose, or with a purpose that is about honoring the earthly, the bodily, and the relational aspects of life. And when I look for that experience of what it feels like to step out of time, what comes to mind is childhood experiences. It's almost as if I wish that bridge was still here and we're walking back across it to our childhood or youth. To those experiences of freedom I associate with summer afternoons stretching into summer evenings, running or biking or scootering or skateboarding around the neighborhood until the sun set and dusk settled in and the streetlights came on, and we knew that earthly time had called for a temporary end to the languid freedom of the summer hang, at least for that day. Ross Gay's fifth incitement, by the way, which he says are incitements to joy officially, but I think also incitements to this particular realm of a joyful kind of freedom. Ross Gay's fifth incitement is about skateboarding. He begins that essay this way. Perhaps somewhat telling is that when Stephanie and I were counseled by our couples therapist to spend some time imagining a safe place before entering a difficult conversation, I didn't choose a mountain stream or a forest or a glade or a meadow or a beach, but rather the parking lot of a shopping center in Pennsylvania where he would skateboard at night after the streetlights came on with his friends. There, beneath the flickering lights, having tipped over a shopping cart, they would ollie over the cart into the dark. Or tired of that, rail slide the cart, or try ollieing it long ways. All of these attempts, Ross Gay notes, from some light into dark, which, he continues, is a nice metaphor of our inquiry, ollieing into mystery. The metaphysical metaphor being that submission to mystery is a possible source of joy, and I would add, of freedom. So here we are again at the hang, this time literally hanging for a moment in the air. And this experience of freedom that incurs in a kind of timelessness within, but also outside of time, is earthly, bodily, and importantly, crucially, relational. Relational. In Ross Gay's words, also, of course, is that I am skating with a beloved pal, ollieing into the dark under the watchful gaze of someone doing the same. That seems relevant too. We are studying each other, beholding each other, flying into the dark. Ross Gay concludes this section of the essay, the fifth incitement, telling us that this is the place, the safe place, the experience that he goes to before a tough chat. It is to this feeling, he writes, which if I were to locate it, is in my chest, and it is the feeling of groundlessness that I go before a tough chat. Remember, this memory was inspired by the couples therapist. It feels right now as if our nation needs a good couples therapist, doesn't it? Like we're perpetually in the midst of a tough chat, and it isn't going well. We might be headed for a breakup, and it isn't pretty. It isn't an amicable split. I guess that brings us to the point of this sermon, that we need the hang now more than ever. That we need these experiences of weightlessness, of joyful freedom, of communion with the earth and our bodies and each other, We've always needed them. That's what the venerable tradition of honoring a Sabbath day is all about. That's what prayer is about, or meant to be about, a time out of time to commune with something greater than our worldly concerns, greater than capitalism, a time out of time to give in to the associational narrative logic that a meandering conversation with God or with one's deepest self needs, that we need that conversation. And now, would you look at that? This Unitarian Universalist minister just defined prayer as a time to hang out with God, to shoot the breeze with the Holy Spirit, to chew the fat with the great goddess. We've always needed this time, but we need it now more than ever, even though it feels harder to justify now more than ever. But now is when we need it the most, because we are in the midst of a very tough chat, and we need to be at our best when we show up for that chat. Now I know, I'm sure you've heard the marriage advice to never go to bed angry. But have you ever tried to have a difficult conversation with a partner or a close friend when you're tired and hungry and strung out? I don't know about you, but I have, and I would rather go to bed angry than go to bed even angrier or not go to bed at all because we can't find a conclusion to the disagreement. Maybe, just maybe, the way to not go to bed angry, maybe I've been misunderstanding it all along, isn't to resolve the conflict, but to take a break from it, to find a way to enter into hang time with each other, studying each other, beholding each other, flying into the dark. Innuendo not intended, but possibly useful. We are in the middle of a tough chat, and we need to come to that conversation well-fed and well-rested. We need to come to that conversation imbued with a feeling of weightlessness, having practiced surrendering into the mystery as if we're skating with a beloved pal. If we're going to find a new ground together, as a nation and in our everyday lives, a new common ground together in any difficult chat, we might just need to start from a feeling of groundlessness. We might need to start by letting go of our preconceived notions. We might need to practice hanging out with no purpose in mind, telling each other stories, and seeing where the associational narrative logic takes us. It might just take us from light into dark, from certainty into wonder, from stark streetlight despair into the embracing arms of a dark night of possibility. At the very least, I know I need to be brought back to life again and again by the earthly, bodily, relational experience of just being together, with no other objective than to shoot the breeze, to feel the breeze while ollieing into the dark under the watchful gaze of someone else doing the same. That sounds like near wild heaven to me. And I know the next line of the song says, not near enough. But I'll be damned if it isn't near enough for me. And I hope it's near enough for you too.
Please rise now in body or spirit as we join in our community blessing with these words from David Brumbaugh, slightly adapted. This church is dedicated to the proposition that by celebrating our differences and embracing our diversity, we honor the unity that makes us one and binds us forever together in spite of time and death and the space between the stars. We pause now in silent witness to that unity. Now that we have gathered together in this welcoming and inclusive spiritual home, let us go out into the world inspired to share our values. Thank you.